Hello everyone and welcome back to the Chris Talks Football Podcast. Today it is episode number 12, I think it is. I'm starting to lose count now. But I think it's either episode number 11 or 12. I'm not really too sure. But regardless, this weekend was the 11th round of fixtures in the Premier League and the 15th in the EFL. So we'll get all onto the Premier League as well as the EFL. We'll get some analysis of some games and across the Premier League and across the EFL as well, so stay tuned for that as well. Also, we're trying to basically hit as many likes and as many followers as we can on this website, on my show. So if you could like and subscribe to the show, then that would really help me out. But this episode will look at a few of the key stories, breaking news as well, in the footballing world, so hopefully we can stay tuned to that. So then let's not mess around and get straight to the Premier League title race, which has probably shown its true colours, especially this weekend. Liverpool and Manchester City were both a goal down at long respective periods of their games. Aston Villa were leading 1-0 against Liverpool through Trezeguet, and to be fair, it's really the second time where this season that we've seen a little bit of defensive fragility in Liverpool's back line. We saw it against Red Bull Salzburg in the Champions League a month or so ago, I think it was, but now we've seen it here against Aston Villa, who I tipped to be relegated. But in my opinion, Aston Villa did play decently well and deserved the draw, but Liverpool, they had that edge to win, and the last few minutes they were hanging on for dear life, and then it was Sadio Mane who popped up with the late winner for them. So it was a really, really good result for Liverpool, and that's what title challenges are made of. That's what champions are made of. Willingness, the ability to come back from a few goals down as well, and the ability to keep going right until the end. And I know there was a lot of added time, but they fought right to the end, Liverpool, and they really deserved the 2-1 victory, because it lifts them, back on top of the table, 6 points ahead of Manchester City, who won their game against Southampton. Remember, Southampton actually lost to Manchester City on, I believe it was Wednesday in the EFL Cup. So, it was the second time in a few days that they were facing Manchester City, and they set up much better than they did on Wednesday. They defended so well. James Ward-Prowse getting a goal after a rare Ederson error led to him scoring. But Manchester City rallied. And I think Southampton only had about 5 shots compared to City's. Well, I think the Cities were in the mid-20s. They had so many shots, but they defended well. But Manchester City in the end scored 2 goals. I can't quite remember who scored the 2 goals. If you guys can tell me that could be quite handy. But they were, again, always willing to win, always, taking it to the last minute, because that's what you have to do in football. It's not over until it's over. And dramatic, obviously, misses, dramatic weekend. VAR was in context as well. But yeah, Manchester City, this needed to happen, because, especially when Liverpool couldn't score, because Manchester City actually got an equaliser at the time Liverpool scored. And again, I said this on the show a few weeks ago, I think if you're going to be champions, you need a little bit of luck. And maybe that luck just hasn't come from Manchester City, because Liverpool snatched the victory from the jaws of defeat, as did City, to be fair. But where luck was needed for Manchester City, it wasn't there. So in the end, it is what it is. In my opinion, Manchester City is still in it. The title race is not over. There will be one hell of a title race as we had last season. So hopefully that can continue. But Southampton really now are in a bit of a hole now, because obviously, even though they played quite well at the Etihad Stadium, a loss is a loss, and obviously questions will be asked of Hasenhüttl. But I think this game, despite a loss, I think will ease the pressure off him, because he has shown that despite conceding 9 at home to Leicester, I think a few weeks back, he can set up teams to defend for about 75% of the game. He's done well with his defence. He shored them up, especially after the Leicester game. And they did fairly well. But obviously Manchester City, with the attacking prowess they have going forward, I mean, Jesus would start at pretty much every other club. But because the striker in Sergio Aguero is an absolute god and simply cannot be dropped, he is probably the unluckiest person in Manchester right now. But yeah, it's really scary how great Southampton defended, especially, you know, after conceding 9 to Leicester City, who we'll touch on in a bit. But yeah, for Aston Villa as well, they've now, I think it's 2 defeats in a row for Aston Villa. Now, against Manchester City, they played much worse. They didn't really have a lot of shots. John McGinn had one off the post in the Manchester City game, but I think now that they did well against Liverpool, I think now we'll start to see Aston Villa's true colours. If they want to remain a Premier League club, they will do basically what Norwich did. They'll have to take it to some of the big 6 teams. And, you know, even though Norwich took it to Manchester City, oh God, it seems like a long time ago now. Even though they took it to Manchester City all those weeks ago, you know, anything can happen in the title race. And this is for relegation as well, because Aston Villa and Southampton are right down near the bottom of the table. So they're really going to have to try and dig deep and get results, like Southampton did against Manchester United all those months, I think last month. So, you know, they have to dig deep, both teams, to try and get results against the top 6. Otherwise it could cost them very dear come the future. But yeah, Leicester City earlier today won 2-0 at Crystal Palace. Jamie Vardy scoring, I believe, his 8th goal of the season. I'm not too sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. And Saglar Soyuncu scoring a goal. And in fact, I really do think that Soyuncu is one of the most underrated defenders. He is such a good defender. And remember, they got him for, I think, £19 million from Freiburg, I think, last season. They didn't really play him, of course, because they had Harry Maguire. But now that Maguire's out of the picture and at Manchester United, where the Leicester fans have probably not stopped laughing since, but Soyuncu really has been a credit to himself. He is an absolute rock at the back, very solid, and he really is pretty much like Robert Huth when they won the title. But speaking of the title, if you've seen BBC Sport, the same guy who betted Leicester to win the league back in 2015 and he got £20,000 off it, he's actually backed them to win the league again this year. And I said this on the show last week, I actually think that the Leicester team of now is better than the Leicester team when they won the league. And that's why I think this season, if they do win the league, I don't think it will be, you know, as unexpected as the last time they won the league, because the odds in 2015 were 5,000 to 1, and you have to go a few months back. They just survived in the Premier League. They pulled off a great escape, so that's why it was such a shock to everyone. But this season, you know, they finished in the top half a few years in a row now, and Brendan Rodgers has come in. He's obviously won titles with Celtic. He's won, I think, the double treble or something like that up in Scotland. And I know, I've said this time again, I could probably play 4 lads down the pub at defending and they'd do better than the likes of St Johnstone and Kilmarnock. But yeah, I really do think that the Leicester team of this season is better than last. Can they win the league? Oh, I don't know. I don't think they can, in my opinion. I said that they would finish 7th, but I'll look like a right mess if they win the league this year. But I don't think that will ever happen. I think that was for one season only, and I do see Leicester finishing probably, as I said, 7th. But if the table is a little bit scrambled up as it is, I mean, what is this? Sheffield United 6th? Come on, this team was in League One over 2 years ago, so come on. But if Leicester could maintain this good run of form, again, I've always said they could probably sneak into Europa League. I think the title in the Champions League is premature talk, but if they can keep on going, I mean, Maddison and Tielemans, again, they're really, really taking it. I mean, they're literally drink water and Kante. Tielemans, is a workhorse in midfield like Kante was, except I think he's scoring a little bit more goals than Kante was when he was at Leicester. And Maddison is Mahrez, pretty much. I mean, they've sold Kante and Mahrez for almost £100 million combined, Leicester. And they've got Tielemans for, 40 million? And Maddison for 15 million from the Championship. So they've really spent that money wisely. And I think the shrewd signings, I mean, look at up front, Jose Perez. He scored a hat-trick against Southampton. He's been quite vital in the last few seasons. And Ndidi, he's been very good as well, making the most tackles out of anyone in the Premier League last season. Iheanacho, they've signed. He hasn't got going yet, I think, Iheanacho, but he's still in his early 20s, so he has another half decade at Leicester, I see, before he moves on. But I think Iheanacho can still be a very, crucial player, because he was very good at Manchester City a few seasons back, but at some clubs it works out, and at some clubs it doesn't work out. And I think one of the clubs, this one, it doesn't work out. But I think that one man who probably is looking at this Leicester team thinking, what have I done? Ahmed Musa. I have never said his name on this show, but Ahmed Musa was a Leicester player when he signed for them after the title win, and he left after the World Cup, I believe, to go to a Saudi Arabian club to, bank up his, boost up his bank balance. And, okay, yes, he's earning the big bucks, but come on. If he just stayed at Leicester for a couple of seasons, he probably would have been third in the league where Leicester are right now. And also catching Leicester up at a sincerely quick rate are Chelsea Football Club. My goodness, what a job Frank Lampard has done. That's 8 wins in a row for Chelsea. They are the form team in the Premier League, and I've said this time and again, he's done an incredible job. And at the start of the season, I looked at this Chelsea squad and I'm thinking Roman Abramovich would have taken one look at the squad that played Manchester United on the opening day, and they probably would have thought who or what a Tammy Abraham was. But he's come good. The midfield three of Jorginho, I think it was Kovacic and Kante, oh my goodness, beautiful football. They honestly should be stored in the nether regions of Pornhub. That's how beautiful they are. The first goal for Chelsea, I believe, was scored by Christian Pulisic. It was a great ball from Jorginho. Really good. One of the passes of the weekend, to be fair. But, Watford did have a penalty, which was quite debatable. Gerard Deulofeu scoring a penalty. Frank Lampard did come out after the game and said VAR is a bit of a shambles because of the penalty decision. For me, I think I agree with him. I don't think it was a penalty for me, because I don't know. I think the way he's gone down and the amount of contacts, it is debatable. But obviously I'm not the referee, but what I'm seeing from the replays does change my mind a little bit. But it's all about Chelsea at the moment. They have done well, 8 wins in a row. They're in they're 4th place in the league, and I think Roman Abramovich will be very happy if Chelsea can, get into the Champions League, because they were in the Europa League with Eden Hazard, and now they've sold Eden Hazard. They've got Christian Pulisic. They could go to the Champions League. So what Chelsea effectively saying is, after 1 year, we didn't need Hazard. And my goodness me, imagine what a team Lampard would have had if they actually kept Hazard and still signed Pulisic. My goodness. Although the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi wouldn't probably get a game in, so, And last season, remember, all the Chelsea fans were tossing off because they thought Hudson-Odoi was going to be a replacement for Hazard. Of course, we'll still know. I think he can be the next Hazard, but obviously he's had an injury that he's just recovered from. Ben Foster, the Watford goalkeeper, almost scored right at the end, but he was denied. But Watford, the winless run goes on. The winless run goes on. And now, what is it now? I think it's 11 games that they haven't won a single game. It's really starting to worry Watford fans, and I really do feel for them, because they're a good club. But as I said in my last episode, the injuries, the bans, the bookings, it just hasn't been nice to them, and they've lost some key players. And the signings they've made, again, I have to point out Ismail Yassar, not a goal or an assist in this season. So, I don't know what he offers, and Watford fans must be pretty frustrated because they have an aging squad. So, I think when you're signing Danny Welbeck, who, has only scored 22 goals in his entire Arsenal career, it is a bit of a worry. But yes, touched on Sheffield United. John Lundstrom is having the season from heaven. He has scored against... Who has he scored against? Did he score against Arsenal? No, he did not. That was actually Luis Mousset. He scored against Crystal Palace, I think, on the second week. And he scored a double against Burnley. So that's, 3 goals this season for him. And he's proving to be a pretty good player. And Chris Wilder has got the best... Well, before this season, had the best managerial record of all the managers in the top 4 divisions of English football. And he has transformed that team. 6th place. He's got them higher than Arsenal and Manchester United, which we'll both touch on after this game. But Sheffield United now, that is actually, they've now kept 2 clean sheets. Actually, no, they've scratched that. They've actually kept 3 clean sheets in the last 4 games. And they've only conceded 1 goal in 360 minutes of football, which is, let me think, 1 goal per, 3 hours? In 3 hours of football, they've only conceded 1 goal. Incredible. 3 hours? No, in fact, that's 6 hours. 6 hours, and they've conceded only 1 goal, which is staggering to think. Sheffield United's defence are incredibly compact, they're tight, they're working well. And, Sheffield United is a breath of fresh air in the Premier League, and they're really one of the most likeable teams, in my opinion, in the country. You just can't help but not like Chris Wilder's style of play. Get it to target men, get it to big people up from the back, and it's working. The defensive system is working. That's why I thought they would stay up, and a lot of YouTubers have said Sheffield United will go down because they haven't got experience. So, experience does count, but experience isn't really 100% of what keeps you in the Premier League. It's how the style of play is and how you shut teams down. Remember, if it wasn't for a Dean Henderson error, this team would have got a draw against Liverpool. They would have been the first team up until, I believe it was Manchester United, to actually make Liverpool drop points, which is staggering to think if you consider this club were in League One 2 years ago. But Burnley, I believe for Burnley it's now 3 defeats in a row. The Leicester defeat was harsh. The Chelsea defeat, was wrapped up already, but this was a little bit like the Chelsea defeat. The damage was done early, and Chris Wood hasn't really scored a lot of goals so far this season. And if Burnley don't score goals, they could be in trouble. But another team that could be in trouble are Arsenal. They have had a hellish couple of last few weeks, because ever since their win against Bournemouth, they've lost to Sheffield United away from home. The Granit Xhaka controversy against Crystal Palace 2-2, and that's 2 home draws in a row. And for Arsenal fans, this isn't acceptable now. They played okay up until, I believe, probably the hour mark, where Wolves started to come back in it when Raul Jimenez scored the equaliser. But the captain's armband, because the Granit Xhaka didn't play yesterday, the captain's armband was given to Aubameyang. Seriously, the captain's armband now is being tossed around so much by Arsenal. And the reason is because there are no real leaders at Arsenal. I'm not having a dig at Arsenal. It's a good club. But the fans and just sometimes, make me want to question the meaning of this sport. But there are no real leaders in this Arsenal side. Whereas if you look at the invincible season that they had before I was born, they had leaders. They had Henry. They had the likes of Petit. They had the likes of Keown, Ray Parlour, Tony Adams. They had real strong leaders that could push a team to drive forward, and that's why they had the invincible season that they had. But I just don't see any leaders in this squad. It's a bit like the overall standard of Arsenal slipping over the last decade and a half? I don't know, Arsenal fans. Let me know. What do you think? Has your club been on a decline for the past 15 years? Because are you really happy with trips to Azerbaijan for a Europa League final instead of a Champions League final that you were contesting in 2006? Well, we don't know. But good draw for Wolves. They actually had a little bit of a sour draw at St James's Park last time out, but this was a good draw for Wolves, and they can build on this now. But Manchester United lost to Bournemouth at home. Josh King scoring a decent volley, and Bournemouth have finally broken their drought. It was before the Manchester United game. It was 3 games without a goal. Josh King has finally scored. Could that be the goal that kickstarted his season? Potentially, we don't know. But Bournemouth defended well. Manchester United, though, despite scoring 3 goals at Norwich, have scored... Let me have a look. They have failed to score in 2 of their last 4 games. A little bit of a worry. Rashford's only got 4 or 5 goals this season, and he's their top scorer, so it's not looking good for United. And for United now, that is, let's have a look, that's 2 defeats in, let me just have a look, that's actually 2 defeats, 3 defeats in 6. So 3 defeats in 6 isn't the greatest. They've only won once, and that was against Norwich. So, not really the greatest run of form for Manchester United. Are they in trouble? Is Ole in trouble? A lot of people are thinking Ole could be sacked by Christmas. Christmas is arriving. It's only 6 weeks away. So, is his time up at Manchester United as we enter almost a third of the season? Elsewhere in the Premier League, Brighton now condemned Norwich to a 5th defeat in 6th. And again, their goal drought goes on, Norwich. They have not scored, Norwich. They've only scored 1 goal in their last... Norwich, they've only scored 2 goals, in fact. 2 goals in their last, I believe, 5... let me just have a look quickly. 6 games. 6 games, they have failed to score more than once, which is a bit of a worry. Because ever since that Manchester City win, Teemu Pukki has not scored, and his goals are absolutely vital in keeping Norwich in the league. I think they'll go down. Brighton are very good now. They have had now, what is that? Apart from that winner, that last minute defeat to Aston Villa, that's now, let's have a look, 3 wins in their last 4 games. Very good form for Brighton. Graham Potter has transformed that team, and they're in 8th place now. Speaking of transformations, Steve Bruce has got Newcastle only 1 defeat now for Newcastle in their last, let me have a look, in their last 4. 1 defeat in 4 for Newcastle, so they're on a pretty good run of form. 2 wins as well against Manchester United and against West Ham. And West Ham defensively were poor, especially the 2 centre-halves, Fernandes and Kieran Clark, scoring for Newcastle. They have to do better. Issa Diop has to do better for the first goal. But West Ham now, their run continues because, they've had pretty dismal performances at home in the last 2 games against Sheffield United and against Newcastle. Jonjo Shelvey's free kick made it 3-0 to Newcastle, and Newcastle have been doing pretty well, but you can't really help but say if Joelinton scored maybe 5-6 goals up until this point, they would be where the likes of Brighton and Sheffield United are. But because Joelinton hasn't really got going, that's why Newcastle is still in the bottom quarter of the table despite this win. So, interesting times coming up for Steve Bruce. So hopefully he gets backed. But for West Ham, their poor run goes on. They need to do something quick. They need to get Haller scoring. They need to get Fornals assisting goals. They need to get Felipe Anderson scoring as well. Otherwise, they could probably drop out of the top half. And I predicted West Ham to actually finish in the top half. I believe I predicted them to finish in 9th. So, they need to do better, West Ham. And the last game of the day was at Everton against Spurs. Now, Spurs' run goes on. They still haven't won a game since, let me have a look. since their 2-1 defeat, 2-1 win against Southampton before their 7-2 thrashing of Bayern Munich. Is Pochettino on a tightrope? Well, if he doesn't win, well, let's put it this way. There are, I believe, 5 Premier League games for Tottenham until Christmas. If he doesn't win 3 or 4 of those games, I think he could be getting sacked. I really do think, because the way that the fans have reacted, they've been calling for Pochettino to go out, and even though I've said to the fans in this show, you don't need to complain. Your club has got to a Champions League final less than 5 months ago, but owing to the way football managers are sacked these days and discarded like a pack of unused condoms, they are on a tightrope. I think Spurs. Everton finally got a draw. They absolutely needed it to keep that one going. It's now 1 defeat for Everton, 1 defeat in the last 3. So, it's been okay for Everton, but the real talking point from that game, Cenk Tossen's equaliser, and then a horrific injury for Andre Gomez, his leg, and I fear that could be maybe 8-9 months out. It was not a very good injury. He had to be stretchered off, so you can tell that they're going to be months out for that if you're stretchered off. I've always said, if a stretcher comes out, it's bad news, and Gomez is an influential part of their midfield, especially last season, but how will Everton cope without him? I mean, Gbaman hasn't really got going. Hopefully he can for Everton fans, because Everton really should be challenging where the likes of Sheffield United and Leicester are, because they have the money, they have the players, they just don't have the consistency. And Marco Silva, this result, saved them, because it could have been even worse for them. But Spurs, despite Heung-min Son scoring, it isn't the run that they want, Spurs. So hopefully that run comes to an end. But that is it for the Premier League. So the table, the top 4, Liverpool has a 6-point lead, I believe, with Manchester City. Leicester are 2 points behind Manchester City. So again, I've always said a good season for Leicester. So can they maintain it up? In the relegation zone, I believe it's still Watford, Norwich and Southampton. I'm not really too sure on that. Correct me if I am wrong. Let's dip into the Championship, and earlier today Preston managed a good win against, I believe it was Brentford. I'm not sure. I think it was Charlton who they beat. So Preston now at the top of the table in the Championship. But the results from yesterday: Swansea City beat Wigan by 2-1. Blackburn beat Sheffield Wednesday by 2-1 as well. Huddersfield Town under Danny Cowley, they've been going quite well. They've pulled themselves out of the relegation zone and are starting to climb up the table. They won away from home 1-0. Cardiff beat Birmingham in a 6-goal thriller 4-2. Derby County, who had their captain Richard Keogh sacked after a car accident that, that led Mason Bennett, one of their players, to having a little bit of consequence. Tom Lawrence as well was involved in the car crash, and he scored the 2 goals that helped beat Middlesbrough, so he sort of repaired that relationship with the fans. Jared Bowen should be in the Premier League because he has scored for Hull once again. He's been one of the top strikers for the Championship in the last 12 months or so. Leeds United beat QPR by 2-0. Luton lost to Nottingham Forest at home, and Luton now are dragged into that relegation dogfight. And Gary Rowett's second game as Millwall boss ended as a 2-1 defeat to Reading. So let's now dip into League One. Wimbledon and Lincoln City played out a 1-1 draw. Blackpool get their season back up and running after a 4-3 win at Peterborough. Peterborough's influential front three, Mo Isa, Ivan Toney and Marcus Maddison scoring for Peterborough despite their losses. Bolton, they're getting a win against Fleetwood. They're slowly starting to get back into the positive points, Bolton. So good for them. Oxford United, who will draw Manchester City in the EFL Cup, they drew 1-1 against Portsmouth. And also, Wycombe are now the new leaders of League One after beating Shrewsbury Town by 1-0. So then, in League Two, one of the most famous competition ties in the week. Colchester United, they are facing Manchester United in the EFL Cup soon. They managed to get an away win against Mansfield by 3-2. Exeter slipped up at the top of the table at Bradford, another side at the top of the table, 2-0. Carlisle beat Macclesfield Town 2-1. Forest Green beat Cheltenham 2-1 as well. Morecambe, who sacked Jim Bentley, I think last week, they beat Leyton Orient 1-0. And Swindon Town beat Walsall by 2-1. Ian Doyle scoring his 14th goal of the League 2 season. He's probably one of the hottest EFL strikers in the market as of now. So then, Barcelona and Real Madrid both missed the chance to go to the top of the table. Levante, who, if you remember, actually beat Barcelona, I think in 2018, 5-4 to crush their Invincibles dream. They beat Barcelona again today. They beat them yesterday, and Real Madrid also missed the chance to go top. Barcelona, I think, are going to win the league. I think they're still going to run away with it. But in the Bundesliga, 5-1 humiliation of Bayern Munich with Eintracht Frankfurt. They scored 5 goals past 10-man Bayern Munich. Absolute embarrassment for them. Also, Juventus won their game in their Serie A as well. Dortmund go back to the top of the table in the Bundesliga with a win against Wolfsburg. And bottom side Dijon stunned Paris Saint-Germain by beating them. And now that's Paris Saint-Germain's 3rd defeat of the season. So is the French League finally going to start being a little bit open and not just Paris Saint-Germain winning every single season? So then that is it for this week's edition of the Chris Talk Football Podcast. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, leave a like on the website, drop a comment, and follow my show if you are new. Subscribe to my YouTube and follow my Instagram as well. And until the next time I see you, goodbye.